Okay, start by telling us what your background in biology is like. What's the highest level you studied to?
GCSE.
Okay.
I got a double A at GCSE, but that's about as far as it goes.
Okay, happy days.
I had an awful, not very nice teacher, so I went and taught myself on a CD-ROM so that I could pass it. So I told my mum and parents even I had to fail.
Initiative, excellent.
Yeah. But I literally, as soon as GCSE happened and finished, that was it. That's as much contact as I've had with biology.
Okay. All right. Well, what would you say is your typical idea of a scientist? What do you think a scientist is? What do they do?
A lab coat, investigation, chemistry.
Mm-hmm.
What are they called? Oh, dabbling in chemicals.
Okay.
All that stuff.
And
dissecting things, I suppose, and to look inside something, to know how it works.
Great fun, yeah. Okay, so what do you think synthetic biology is specifically?
Wouldn't have a clue. I don't know where to start.
Okay. I'll give you a definition of it, and then I can ask you a couple more questions. Okay. So synthetic biology is similar to genetic engineering. Are you familiar with that at all? You know, like we've. Okay. Right. Synthetic biology is the design of new biological parts, usually talking about molecules here, or the redesign of biological systems to include these new parts. Okay, there's a big emphasis on the design element. Okay, so we'll be making core parts that can be modelled and chosen to do exactly what you want. So instead of normal biology, you would be investigating something to learn about it. Synthetic biology, you use an engineering approach, where you would have a requirement or a need, and then you work upwards from that to satisfy that need.
Okay.
So it's kind of a backwards scientific method. Does that explain that right? Does that make sense to you?
A little.
Okay, so genetic engineering is when you alter the genes of an organism to make it do what you want it to do. Hopefully.
Okay, so fixing things then.
Sort of, yeah. A comedian likened it to throwing lumps of concrete and metal into a river, and then if you can walk across it, calling it a bridge.
Okay.
Whereas synthetic biology is more specific. You've got the whole design element, and you want to achieve something specific, and you aim for that.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the main difference.
And is synthetic biology then used for designer babies type stuff? Does it ever go into that field? Is that making genes specifically the way you want them to be? Is that the sort of thing it's used for?
Well, not at present anyway. It's not that there are lots of ethical concerns with that and legal concerns.
No,
obviously.
of course. But why would you want to change a cell anyway? Why would you want to?
Okay, so
aside from fixing things, do you know what I mean?
Okay, so if you think about, for instance, oil spills, okay, lots of common ways of dispersing them and getting rid of the problem are lacking in an efficiency. So if we could make bacteria do it for us.
Yeah, okay, drop something in that or even makes it congeal together so it's easier to pick out type
So
thing.
if you get a bacterium that has the ability to disperse an oil film or anything like that by breaking it up into smaller droplets or something.
Okay, cool.
If you can control the behaviour of that bacterium, then you can use it as a tool.
Yeah, gotcha, of course.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So, and another idea of it is that you could create parts that could be used by someone who doesn't necessarily have biological knowledge.
Okay.
So, you're an engineer making a car, for instance, but the driver using it doesn't have to know engineering to operate the car.
Of course.
Okay, it's a tool that you use to fulfill a purpose. Yep. Okay, so knowing that and that we're using genes from different species, different bacteria, different organisms, and putting them into other organisms. Do you have any safety concerns about that? Is there anything that seems untoward to you?
No, I don't think so. Should there be?
I don't personally think so, but there are lots of people that have opinions like that.
Okay.
So, so I've explained how this differs from genetic engineering.
I'm a bit naive, but I sort of hope a scientist knows what he's doing. But then, quite often, if they're always experimenting, they're not really sure of the outcome either.
One of the best things about science is we like to admit and investigate our ignorance.
Okay.
We try to prove things wrong rather than prove things right.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so I've explained the difference between synthetic biology and genetic engineering. So synthetic biology is going to a particular purpose and it's much more aim specific.
Okay.
Do you have any safety concerns then about genetic engineering as opposed to synthetic biology?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Again, should I?
Well, some people do, some people don't. It's, I suppose, a much less precise way of doing things, but it's a different approach altogether.
Cool.
So that's a personal choice, really.
Okay.
If you, I'm mainly asking about the connotations of it, with
Okay.
your present knowledge of it, the way you think about it.
Okay.
Okay, so I've talked about how you can make standard parts, like with the mechanics analogy.
Mm-hmm.
So if you wanted someone without biological knowledge to be able to use these parts, it could be feasible in the future. Do you think that's a good idea? For someone who doesn't have biological knowledge to use these systems?
Well, no, I don't see why not. If it works, then yeah, hone in on other ways that you could go about using it.
So would you think of it as any other type of tool, like the same as any other type of tool that could be used?
Yeah, it's just, I suppose it's applying the same sort of method, isn't it, on a different cause, and then you're bettering the effects. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Okay, there have been lots of different scientific breakthroughs in recent years, recent decades. Stem cell research, genetic engineering, sequencing of the genome, and all that sort of thing. Do you feel that the media publicises it enough, and that do you feel
sequencing of the genome? Did you just say? Do you want to explain that to me?
Okay, so in 2001, I say we, I wasn't personally involved in it, but scientists managed to crack the genetic code, so to speak. They worked out the entire sequence of a person's DNA. So the DNA is made of bases, there's G, C, A and T, and the combination of them dictates what the cells do in your body, basically. It's like the blueprint or the recipe for everything that your cells can make. Okay. DNA is made into protein, and protein is like the worker molecules in your body. They do everything. Think of it as currency coming from a bank. Okay. So the sequence of a person's genome can now be analysed, and we're talking.
But not fixed yet entirely.
No, we're not talking about altering at the moment. Only like uncovering a sequence. So if there's a genetic disease, you can compare one person's genes to another and see where the differences lie, and then you can So we've got a complete sequence, and it will vary from person to person, but we have a template to work from now. Now things like
start.
Yeah, it's a start. Yeah, it's a work in progress. Do you think things like this has the information been passed on to the public enough? Do you think that you've heard a lot about this in the media?
I think so. Yeah, I would say so. Yeah. Yeah. So it feels, for some reason, it feels like knowing the structure of DNA has been around for ages, though. It does feel like that's something that's a given at the moment.
Yeah, I can hardly imagine it not being.
Yeah. So if it's quite a recent find, then it feels the norm at the moment. It feels quite like it's always been there. So we must have been fed something early on.
Well,
it doesn't feel like breaking news. Do you know what I mean?
The actual structure of the double helix is back in the 50s, but I'm talking about the actual sequence of how.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying. But I think that goes hand in hand in what we thought we knew about the double helix as a person who doesn't do biology. Do you know what I mean? It feels like there's a sequence within the double helix, and it's just that we didn't realise there was a sequence. So if we've not always known about the double helix, then now there's this come about. It's as if you lot already knew, but we didn't. Do you know what I mean? Like a second.
Do you think scientists should try harder to publicise their work, like in a way that your average person can understand?
Yeah, but bite-sized, not because if you produced a thesis, I wouldn't pick it up and read it, because I wouldn't want to. It's not that I don't have any interest in it, but it's that I wouldn't know where to begin trying to understand it, and I don't think if it's not your field of expertise, then I don't think anyone would want to investigate that side of things.
You can't expect everybody to understand every possible field.
Exactly, absolutely. But if it was relayed in a way like those programmes, the BBC are doing it quite well at the moment. There's all the space ones with Dr. Brian Cox, isn't it?
That's the one, yeah.
He's great. He makes me feel like I know what I'm talking about to do with the universe.
He explains
so if we
it right
could
from
deliver
the
it in that sort of way, not always television because that's so mundane, but maybe a bit more radio coverage would be nice. Okay.
What about in the news, for instance? Do you think science should receive more coverage in the news?
Yeah, I do think so, actually. I can't think of the last time we heard about you know, something that you lot were working on. I really don't. So yeah, I'd say so.
It's nice to see.
Less of
interest.
the doom and gloom and a bit more about what we're doing to better.